I think that we should talk a little bit as well about the types of agave spirits that are being made in America because we've gathered at this point that you are trying to do something different from tequila, mezcal, sotol, et cetera, in that you're not in Mexico. Cool. Um, that's like an arbitrary line drawn on a map, and we know that their laws and our laws are different, and there's many reasons why what you're doing is different from that, just in a like a in principle way. Um, but in practice, what kinds of agave spirits are currently or have been being made in the United States? And kind of where do you situate your approach within that portfolio of things that are already being done, things that are already out there labeled as American agave spirits?
Yeah, man. I mean, so right now it's kind of the Wild West as far as like how American agave spirit is being produced. I think, the main more popular one right now is getting, agave syrup imported from Mexico. Fermenting that syrup, distilling it, and having an agave spirit made from there. Um, and that's a pretty popular approach and the most accessible approach that we have right now. I was like talking to our friends at Mean Mule, and it was like, agaves in Kansas aren't really a thing right now. They're not a prevalent thing, but from all over the American Southwest, from Texas to here, and now in Hawaii, you're seeing agaves, not only just naturally growing, but now people are thinking about growing them as an actual crop. And then you have the other folks down in Texas, the Desert Door folks growing Sotol, and I think that's a really beautiful story. And actually, uh, we would like to think we have an aligned mentality on what they were doing. First they were naturally harvesting or native harvesting, agaves on people's or not agaves, Sotols on people's ranches, and using them to make a spirit. And here in California, there's a big movement of agave growing. We have the California Agave Council, which we're really proud of being a part of. And right now we're facing a pretty interesting time in agriculture in California. There's obviously a water situation, a drought situation, and so a lot of farmers are using agave as an alternative source for planting. Whether it's on fallowed ground or ripping out our almond orchards and planting agaves for water conservation and drought resistance. And so those are like the main three that I can think of. And I think where we're really paving our own road is that, we're being very specific on how we produce and grow our agave spirit. And so first is by using U.S. native agaves. That's, agaves, like you mentioned, before or after the line was drawn in the sand between Mexico and the United States. There's always a big conversation of whether they're native or not, but we like to think of, if they were grown in the United States, and they still are, then we're going to call those native. And so, for instance, there's the agave americana, the most popular one you see. There's the agave perii, which has been, very grown by the Native Americans in Arizona for a long period of time. Um, in California, we have the agave shot, the Murphy eye, um, Utah ensis. There's just a ton of different varieties that you have here in California. And so what we're really trying to do in the field to start with is, growing these specifically to the environments that they would thrive more in, right? The agave perii, agave americana, they're very, very multifaceted agaves. They can grow in warm and cold climates, but they're very, very cold and hardy to the cold environments. So we can grow those basically anywhere, in snow, in the desert if you want. The agave shah is a very beautiful uh, agave that grows in kind of like this Southern California, San Diego area, all the way to Baja. They found, and so very coastal driven kind of agave. So you have all these different agaves that we want to grow. And then also where we take the approach is by using regenerative agricultural techniques, trying to develop the land and the soils in a very organic way, and using only good practices so we can have better, higher sugar, tastier agave, um, which then lends to our fermentation practices. We try to do native fermentation as best as possible, so we can really show the terroir and the agave as best as we can. And so that's what we mean by really moving the blazing our own trails, is just to really trying to do it in a way that is just, yeah, our own.